back to the British lockdown, the first full lockdown, the second full lockdown in this pandemic. I've got to say, when you've got 59,000 overnight infections and breaking a record night after night after night, 400 deaths in the last 24 hours, something has to give. But I just wonder whether doing this does anything, because you know as well as I do, 80% of Britain was locked down anyway, wasn't it?
That's right. It depends what you mean by lockdown. They had a system in the UK of tiers, tier 1, 2, 3 and 4. And tier 4 is a very substantially what we might call a lockdown. So they're going to an even greater degree of lockdown, if you like, a kind of tier 5. But it won't make a huge difference to most people compared to the tier 4 that they were under. The question is whether these measures are going to work. I mean, they've had people substantially locked down for quite some weeks now, for the last 3 weeks or so, and it doesn't seem to have made much difference. So, you know, I hope for the best. But the truth is the UK has done one thing well, and that is approved the distribution of the vaccine very quickly.
Yes.
And they've already had quite a few people vaccinated, and they're aiming at doing 2 million vaccinations a week. So they will be able to get out of all of this if they can distribute the vaccination fast enough. But they have done that, and only that, by the way, but they have done that better than any other country.
A friend of mine in London described the situation as some kind of hostage on a train track, wrapped up in rope, with the train coming closer and closer and closer because the health system is almost at an overload rate, and they've got to quickly bring down the deaths, because otherwise there'll be no place for the body bags. It might sound terrible, but it could be true.
So it depends very much who you talk to here. I think there is a very sophisticated debate in the UK about all of this. Are there more hospitalisations now than you would expect at this time of year had it not been for COVID? And many argue that there aren't actually all that many more.
Right.
That in terms of respiratory hospitalisations, of course, there are COVID hospitalisations, but there's a huge decline in flu and pneumonia hospitalisations. So this is the time of year when their hospital system comes under pressure, as you'd expect in the middle of the winter. So I'm not sure. I think the data is very much debated in the UK. And in having been back in Australia for a few weeks now, one of the things that surprises me compared to the UK is how there isn't much debate here about the data. Or, you know, you hear people, you hear the number of people have COVID, but how are they? You know, that not everybody who gets COVID is going to die.
Not one person in intensive care in Australia, which is a statistic that people need to get through their heads. You make a very good point. It's much more comfortable with the weather in Adelaide, no doubt, at the moment. You'd be more keen on staying there and not going back to London for the time being?
Yeah, well, I won't be going back very soon, no, that's for sure. I certainly like to put it off. I mean, I work in London, so at some point I need to get back there, but I'm putting it off as long as I possibly can.